Welcome back to Les Schwab Tire Center's Outdoor GPS, presented by Fisherman's Marine and Outdoor.
Welcome back, everyone. We're joined in studio by Aleks Maslov with Edge Rods, traveling man all over the place. I mean, I was actually talking about this with Ryan a little bit earlier. I forget a lot of how large of a company Edge really is. It's not just of course, started here in Woodland, local company, Gary Loomis, right, the man himself, right here. But you're not just here. You're all over the place, let alone worldwide. But nationally, you've got multiple other locations. So you're traveling constantly, aren't you?
It makes interesting for managing a company from time to time, but we have a brand new location in Houston. So if you guys are snowbirding down in Texas, come and visit us. We're fairly close to the coast, about an hour away, and then with our acquisition of Stryker, now we're in Eugene.
Gotcha.
So expanding capacity. We do have a sales office in Japan, we have a sales office in Korea, and we have a sales office in Europe. So, one in Australia. But that's
Gee, really?
Yeah.
Now, running the thing, you're going to these places, aren't you?
From about the beginning of January until the end of April, my family sees me maybe a handful of times.
So we're lucky to get him in here this year in 2025 in January.
And sport shows. I want to see everybody at sport shows, yeah.
Well, and I mentioned it earlier, Edge is unquestionably a destination location, okay? A lot of people come through there, they're like, okay, we got to get the Edge, okay? A lot of people get there on Wednesday specifically to get to, well, a lot of the booths that are there, Edge is one of them, where they want to get there where the most amount of inventory is available, so they can go and put their hands on them and go, okay, I'll take this one and this one and this one and not have to wait any amount of time. Great, it's a good way to go. But it's a good reason to go over there because you're going to start seeing people walking around with Edge signage basically on the rods when they're walking through the shows. So, I mean, there's certainly great reasons to go check them out. Of course, you got the Portland show that starts on the 12th here coming up. I'll actually be there on the 12th with Good Day Oregon. I'm looking forward to that, too. But, okay, so let's talk about this one. This is the 804 360 Pro.
Yep.
Now, this is a brand new rod for that 360 Pro line. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So we've had a chance to enjoy the 360 Pro line of rods from Edge for a handful of years now. My favorite one is the 9'2". Again, because I'm always in the back of the boat, I like that shorter rod. When I'm, for a number of reasons, when I'm solo fishing, it makes it easier to land a fish that's shorter than, say, 10'6", 10'9", 11'2". So it just makes it simpler to do so, but you've improved on that. This is an 8-footer.
It's an 8-footer, and, you know, the idea for this rod came along just watching folks live at Drano for almost a month and a half.
Yeah, okay.
You know, tight conditions, very close fishing, lighter tackle than normal because, you know, the way that pool behaves is different than the rest of the tributaries at times. But you have guys that are fishing Columbia in kayaks. Now, for those of you that are, first of all, be safe, wear your life jackets. I'm stealing your line. But those of you that are braving the elements to fish for salmon in your kayak, this is the rod for you too. It's perfect out of the back of the boat because one, as a boat captain, even if you have your 9'2" or your 10'6", or you're still getting that spread by going shorter on the rod that you've got in your hand.
Yeah.
It's short enough for you to be able to net your own fish if you're by yourself, but also if you're in a kayak, we don't want you to do the lean. We want you to lift the rod, and this is where this rod really shines. You can lift it and you can put it behind your back and not worry that you're going to hear that dreaded pop.
Right.
So it's made for kind of that individual solo fishing, but also perfect out of the back of the boat.
Listen, for all of you kayak anglers, take this advice. But yes, you've already learned. And a lot of you are as successful, if not more successful than dudes like myself running around in 6 figures, okay? That's a fact, 100%. It's stealthy, it's effective, it's inexpensive, but you got to have something that's going to keep you safe. I would actually call this a little bit of a safety feature for that exact reason. And I've got a lot of time in a kayak. Y'all remember our days with our previous kayak. I apologize, too, for some of those folks. But anyway, having the shorter rod really is going to be a whole lot nicer, and you don't have to compromise. You don't have to have a short salmon rod that you're running a 360 in that kayak where it's not really working correctly. And again, if you want to just take a 360, let's say the new Brad's Chromer that they've got available, you guys have it available as well. If you've got that out there working and you got a rod that's too stiff, doesn't have the right bend to it, it's not going to allow those 360s to make their full clean rotation. Now, if you're new at it, you're going to go, that's not true. It's the same thing. No, it's not. There's a reason why the best that are out there are building rods like this, because it's accommodating a way to fish for salmon that will never go away. It's always going to be the dominant way to target salmon from here on out, forever. Simple to say that. But if you have the right tools, you will be more effective. It's true.
You know, you can
It's just hilarious.
You can force a rod to fish a flasher.
You can, I like that way.
But it's not designed, like that rod is not designed to fish that flasher.
Yeah.
So and the 360s, if you load them up, you'll see that the action is a little bit different than your traditional parabolic rod, because it has to have that kick in there to give that flasher that right movement as it moves through the water column.
Right.
Some guys want to move to K16s if, you know, things slow down with the flasher. This rod will work for a K16 as well. It's got that tip that will chatter just enough for the really heavy plugs.
Yeah, I get it. Super nice setup. It's a one-piece rod.
Yep, it's a one-piece.
That by itself is really, really cool for pretty much all sleds out there that have top loaders. An 8-footer will obviously fit. Smaller boats will also fit in your gunnels a lot easier than the longer rods. We went from short 8.6 rods literally for 100 years here in the Northwest, if not shorter, to now a lot of us are fishing minimum 10.6 and sometimes even longer. There's a reason why going back to something a little bit shorter that's made to do a specific job is an advantage. So, and these will be available as well at the sport shows?
Yes, they will be.
Okay.
Yep.
So write that down. It's an 804 360 Pro rod. Okay, brand new. Will be available at the sport shows and factory outlet up there in Woodland as well. And you can see there that Ryan, being as good as he is, found it. Good job, man.
Thanks, Ryan.
Yeah, really, really cool rod. Very interesting setup. I'm very interested to see what that's actually going to look like when you got that 360 getting trolled around. All right, so striker. This is the question that I've gotten, and I'm literally just a TV host. I'm lucky enough to have Edge as a partner here at GPS, but I get this question a lot. What is striker? Is that an Edge rod? It is, but it isn't.
Yep. So it's a U.S. factory that's based out of Eugene that's been around for about 5 years. They were the reincarnation of Rogue Rods, for those of us that remember Rogue Rods that were down in Southern Oregon. We purchased Striker about a year ago, and we are planning on having Striker rods in traditional retail outlets.
Gotcha.
So those of you that watch the show, know the show, Edge is strictly consumer direct.
Right.
It will always be consumer direct. That's how we decided to structure the company. That's our pricing policy. Striker gives us the ability to have rods that are available in retail as well. So, you know, our retail partners, we're currently working with them to bring rods into traditional retail. It's a little bit different than Edge. It's not blanks or rods that are designed by Gary Loomis. They've been, you know, designed by the local team there. Customers absolutely love them, but Striker does get to benefit from our purchasing power, from our R&D, from our ability to design rods. So we're slowly integrating that into the company as well. It's still managed independently. It's managed separately. It's very, very small, but it's highly dedicated to Pacific Northwest fishing. Again, a little bit different than Edge. The coloration is different. It's blue. But it's a wonderful Pacific Northwest rod.
Extremely popular, has been for a reason. I would assume one of the reasons why you may have acquired it. The first thing you're going to notice if you were to say, okay, well, let's compare a Striker to an Edge, and the absolute first thing is you're going to notice, quite frankly, double the weight of anything that's comparable as far as length and power rating. At least double the weight.
It's a workhorse rod.
It's a rod that you can fish and be happy to let somebody else use it. But it's certainly something that you need to keep in mind. And I love the fact that you mentioned that it will take advantage of your experience with Edge to better the product as it goes forward. But if we don't talk about this last one that we haven't gotten to yet. Now, for a lot of you up north, you are not new to mooching rods or using those weird fly reel things for chasing salmon around in the Puget Sound area.
My knuckles started hurting as soon as you said that.
Or up in Canada. We're not in Canada, but we are up north in that Seattle area. Okay, so a lot of you are familiar with these mooching rods. Tell us about this particular one that you guys just came out with, another new product. It is available at the Sportsman Show.
Yep.
And we do have a question from Al for you, so we're going to take that here in just a minute.
You bet.
So Al, please be patient with us. But this is a mooching rod designed for what type of reel?
So this is designed for a Canadian-style mooching reel, like an Islander, commonly known as a knuckle buster.
Correct.
Because if you're not careful, we know what happens.
You break a knuckle.
you break a knuckle. Yeah. Extra long foregrip and a longer rear grip, so it sits better into a rod holder, and it gives you a lot of ability, essentially, to kind of push it down into the bottom of your belly, and you're holding this rod typically up here. Also, you'll notice no trigger. So it's a triggerless setup. But it's a parabolic, still made on the 360 platform, designed to be a mooching rod that is very soft in action. And I won't be able to replicate that sound that Owen makes when a salmon dives, but it sounds like a click and then it's over.
Okay, I got you. Mooching rod setups. I mean, for you folks up there, and there's a lot of folks these days that I've noticed over the last handful of years that have been using those mooching knuckle buster one-to-one reels on the Columbia, in the Willamette. It's certainly a thing for a lot of people up north, kind of maybe catching on a little bit down here. I'll still take my line counters. But it's just one of those things that you have options. And Edge has pretty much every rod and combination of technique-specific rods that you may ever need. Now, if you're a bass angler, it goes without saying that your bass line is extremely popular.
You know, the incredible thing is the 360 Pros, for the first time in our company's 12-year history, became one of the top 10 rods, supplanting some of the bass rods too. It's just how popular the technique is.
Wow.
It's something that we've not seen before. You know, you used to have the old Loomis, the 1141 GLX type rods that were incredibly popular to compete with bass. Now we're seeing that with the 360 rods.
Very interesting.
A guy that has a boat wants to have 6 trolling rods.
Yeah.
And that definitely helps in terms of the number of rods that a company moves.
That's interesting that you mentioned that. Very, very interesting. Because I was always surprised initially when he said that, bass rods were maybe your number one produced or selling rods.
As a percentage of revenue, bass is huge. But for the first time in a long time, you start to have one of the 360 rods kind of inch its way into the top 10.
That's crazy. Yeah. All right, well, that just goes to show you the 360s ain't going anywhere. Okay, we're going to cut to a break. When we come back, I got a question for Aleks from Al in Malala, and I want to talk about oars. There's a lot of things that Edge does. Oar shafts and blades is one of them. We'll be back with that in just a couple minutes.
Outdoor GPS is brought to you by Yakima Bait, steeped in tradition, innovation, and fishing success. Procure Bait Sense, ruthlessly effective. And by North American Metals Incorporated, first choice for all your metal roofing and siding needs.